He's had people run up to 200 mcgs a clen and 120, 150 T3.
Hey, that's
no, I just got an email, 180 T3 for 8 weeks.
180 T3
and two plus hours of cardio, plus 180, 200 micrograms of clen, plus 600 milligrams of DNP.
Oh my
God! What the hell?
So he had some girls use DNP too.
Yeah, I have the protocol. This is the most recent person that just messaged me.
Even worse than I thought.
What's up guys, Derek, moreplaysmoreathletes.com. Today we are going to be talking about the guru of death, Shelby Starnes' body count and methods, a warning for females. This is a video posted by Leo and Longevity, friend of the channel, co-host of the Super Physiological Man podcast. New episode coming soon, by the way. We got to get on a call, me, him, and Steve, and get another podcast out there soon. It's been a fucking minute since we've talked. So anyways, this is a pretty fucking serious video, and I kind of put off every other video I had on my to-do list to get on this because of the fucking severity and impact this has. Like, I was not aware of how ridiculous, like, I knew there were a lot of coaches out there doing ridiculous shit, dangerous shit. Like, inherently, the sport of bodybuilding is extremely unhealthy. Like, there's no way you can really... all you're really doing is attenuating risk throughout your entire career. Like, there's nothing that is, longevity promoting about it. There's nothing that's healthy about it. It's just like, it's a drug-ridden sport that encourages you to, hold more muscle mass than is otherwise sustainable on your organs, essentially. And eventually, now again, this is going to depend on the level of the sport. If you're doing natural or enhanced bodybuilding, obviously, but like, I think it's fair to say everyone already is quite understanding that enhanced bodybuilding is not necessarily a healthy endeavor. However, there are ways to go about reaching the same outcomes as the next guy in a healthier way. And that is where the guidance of a high quality coach comes in, and ensuring that you are taking the best precautions to maintain as healthy as possible, deploying things like angiotensin receptor blockers, potentially beta blockade, ensuring you're not unnecessarily inhibiting aromatase indiscriminately, using proper protocols. And especially when it comes to women's bodybuilding, it's even more fucking finicky because you have to deal with viralization and a bunch of other satellite interactions that are a bit less problematic in men. Like, you can literally ruin a chick's femininity in her entire life, essentially, by putting her on the wrong protocol for too long of a period of time, or too high of a dosage for too long of a duration of time. And it's fucking sketch. It's just a sketchy fucking industry in general, unfortunately. And that is why having the best quality coach is of paramount importance, or doing your own research ideally and educating yourself to understand this stuff thoroughly before going into it. But unfortunately, this is an ever evolving sport. The knowledge basis around how to stay as healthy and safe as possible while doing it is ever evolving. And even the top, like gurus, some of them have stopped learning years ago, and they're deploying the same kind of protocols that are dangerous as fuck as they were doing their athletes 10 to 15 years ago. And it's starting to have like a bleed through effect with social media, where you have now people that can come out to the public with, dangerous protocols that have been given out and actually publicize them and have it get seen by many people. Because back in the day, if you killed somebody while prepping them for a show, maybe it got swept under the rug because it wouldn't get blown up on social media. But nowadays, you have a lot of athletes that are, dropping like flies. And maybe it seems like it's more prevalent now, but I'm sure it was quite prevalent back in the day too. You just heard about it a lot less. And there are, certain individuals that are a bit more risky with their, protocols and whatnot, and certain individuals that are less educated than others. And some coaches that just, push the envelope way too fucking hard to get people in shape to, have high quality athletes that they can then use to promote their businesses and whatnot. I guess the ethics of the whole thing comes into question when it's like, how hard are you going to push somebody given the risk of their health in order to get a final package that is, presentable for your social media to then promote your shit? Like, are you going to put that person's health on the line? That is where the ethics of some of these coaches really, comes into question. And this one in particular, I don't really know this guy, to be honest. I'm, learning about him through watching the Leo and Longevity podcast with Boston. Blue Taylor, as well as her name is Stephanie. She is, let's see here, trying to, basically she has her own story about her interactions and coaching experience with this, the man in question that this podcast is about, and some of the insane protocols that were being used. And most notably recently, an IFBB pro died. Her name was Elena Kozanova, and maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong, apologies if I did, but apparently there is a ever-growing list of individuals who were supposedly deaths under the care of this coach. Now again, are there other coaches who have killed athletes too? Yeah, there are. And that's no, like, the fact that that is even an occurrence in general for multiple coaches to be killing people, fucked up, you know? It's a fucked up sport. I have a friend of mine who is like probably a pro caliber physique. And he was competing just at a provincial show in Canada. And it was one of his like first shows. Like, he hadn't done that many of them. And he had, you know, like a classic like guru who's, you know, a veteran, give him a protocol. I remember looking at it, and this was like before I even knew of the diuretic usage. And I was like, dude, this protocol is fucking stupid. This guy actually doesn't know what he's talking about. And he proceeded with the coach based on the guy's track record. And given the fact that he's a veteran in the bodybuilding world, you know, he's been around the block for a fucking minute. And he assumed, you know, well, this guy, you know, has the experience. So obviously, and he's, you know, done it a bunch of times. So obviously he must know what he's talking about. So he proceeded anyways. He ended up getting on this, you know, nonsensical protocol, prepping for the show, and getting on such an aggressive diuretic protocol that he ended up in kidney and heart failure. Yeah. So he ended up having a long road to recovery and likely hasn't recovered full. I don't know if he's recovered full function where his ejection fraction is back up to baseline. He's in his mid 20s. So this is, you know, an individual that, you know, if he's going to bounce back, like he had the least duration of exposure of like anyone. He'd only been really doing this for a couple shows. So, and fortunately he did not, you know, he was able to make a recovery in general, but like I imagine there's some permanent taxation on his organ systems that is non-recoverable. You know, he's been on medications now since that point, and there are certain things he can't do now, and he can't be nearly as like, obviously he has to be a lot more careful with what he does in general because he doesn't want to push the envelope and end up in a similar boat. But I mean, like, the leeway he has in his health in general is much less than it was before. And that's not an excuse to say like he could have, you know, pushed the envelope otherwise with like anabolics in the off season or something if he didn't do this, and like that sucks that he can't now. Rather, the problem is that he ends up in this boat to begin with, where you end up with fucking, you know, a fraction of your organ's potential to function based on the fact that you had some dumb fuck give you a stupid diuretic protocol plus a, you know, anabolics and diuretic protocol prior to the show, you know, deploying ancillaries unnecessarily at aggressive amounts several weeks out, using anabolics at ridiculous dosages, adding in compounds unnecessarily, having a laundry list of the fucking kitchen sink thrown at you just because, like, at the end of the day, is it gonna work if you make a guy, you know, grind the cardio into the ground, diet him into the ground, throw him on a bunch of fucking thermogenics and shit, and then diuretic him into the, you know, the ground, literally almost? You're gonna get a guy shredded, but it doesn't mean that he couldn't have achieved a similar outcome without having to deploy a bunch of dangerous fucking tactics to get there. So again, I've seen this personally firsthand with a friend of mine, and, you know, obviously I've heard of many situations through other acquaintances and whatnot. I've seen many fucking situations over the years, you know, following bodybuilding as a spectator and whatnot. And this story was fucking crazy, dude, because like these protocols are next level in terms of danger. And I just wanted to bring it to you know, the surface in case like this video is picking up traction. But I mean, if I can, you know, stop a few girls from ending up in a similar boat, from getting on it. Like, if you see a protocol, even being able to recognize if it's fucking nonsensical or not, it's like that education is absolutely critical, because you might have no idea. You might get a protocol from a coach, again, like my friend did. He was a reasonably educated guy. He wasn't a complete novice to anabolics. You know, he was smarter than the average person when it comes to anabolics. But again, when it comes to farm, it's like most people don't understand this stuff at all. And that's why they defer to a coach and hire one to begin with. And you would hope you can trust them with your health and your protocols when you go to them, and you're not going to question them. Like, how much, like, it's such a frowned upon thing in the bodybuilding community too. When you hire a coach and then you start asking around for tips from other people, like a lot of times the responses you'll get when you're trying to educate yourself, asking around for opinions is, why the fuck are you paying your coach when you should be listening to him? Listen to your coach. Don't ask around, like get different ideas from other people. Like people actually get annoyed from that shit when you're trying to educate yourself and learn about the best possible way to go about it without fucking yourself up. I've seen this time and time again. A guy asks a harmless question. It's like, don't you have a coach? Like, aren't you paying him? Fucking listen to him. Like maybe we want to make sure we don't have a fucking heart attack and kidney failure when we get on stage. Maybe we're trying to educate ourselves and see if the coach actually knows what they're talking about. I think it's a reasonable thing. A reasonable question to do is to go around, and try and accumulate different responses from different, credible sources of information and try and consolidate it into an educated conclusion about what may be the safest and smartest thing to be doing, rather than blindly deferring to one person just because they have a good reputation. And as we see, blindly deferring to one person because of their reputation can end up with some pretty fucking murky waters with individuals on a so-called death list. So again, as we get into this death list, we have some pretty insane protocols, and we're going to be getting into it here. And above and beyond the insane fat burners, diuretics, the androgen use is absolutely absurd too. The compound selection, the gamut of compounds being used, you can imagine there is, probably a lot of individuals under his care that probably ended up severely viralized or, have extreme levels of, obviously, the cardiomegaly that's going to occur above and beyond the androgen use with the fucking ridiculous stimulants and whatnot is absolutely going to be happening. Some crazy amounts of cardiovascular issues, fibrosis that might be permanent. You're going to have individuals with fucking dysregulation in the cardiovascular system. Their kidneys are going to be permanently inhibited in many contexts. Like I would imagine he probably has. If this is a common protocol that's being given out, I would imagine there's many women that are somewhat permanently fucked up from this, not just the ones that have passed away, unfortunately, but there are probably many that have been, exposed to these same kind of drugs and the same burden of compounds, like overall dosages, and are probably, walking around with taxed as fuck organ systems, unfortunately, are probably living inhibited quality of lives because of it. So this is a great deep dive, and it's fucking shocking. I was my goddamn mouth dropped at some of these comments being made here. Getting into the protocols in particular, dangerous diuretic protocols, and go check out Leo's channel. He is probably one of the premier bodybuilding news channels at this point, to be honest. Besides the fact that I'm friends with him, I'm actually highly interested in the posts he makes and the podcasts he gets out there with high quality guests. Definitely go check out his channel, subscribe to it, and kudos to him for, and kudos to Stephanie for having, the bravery to stand up and, make a fucking post about this stuff. So anyways, we get to the dangerous diuretic protocols and kidney damage. And I will kind of, chime in when I feel appropriate.
And only used him for a month. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, would you be willing to help me out the last 2 weeks and dial me in, peak me, blah, blah. He's like, I really don't like doing that. But I will for you. You have a credit with me. We'll just, let's get to work. And immediately he sent me this protocol, and I'd never even heard of aldactone or Bumex before. So I saw the protocol. I knew what the diazide was. And I didn't ask what is aldactone? What is Bumex? So I went to my source to get these things, and my source basically said, why do you need Bumex? That's basically stronger than Lasix. That's insanity. And I was like, I'm just doing what I'm told, and my source didn't even really want to send it to me, but he did. And I did the protocol. And I remember, I left for Florida and I was 163 pounds about 4 days out. And, the morning of the show, I was 147. So I lost, 16 pounds in about 36 hours. At the point, the night before the show, when I was getting my tan, I was hunched over. I couldn't stand up. Physically, I could not stand. I was hunched over and they were putting the tan on me and I couldn't breathe. And I just felt like I was going to pass out and very weak and kind of an out of body experience. And I remember laying down and I took the 1 milligram of Bumex, and I guess it works pretty quickly. And I remember like, I kept going to the bathroom and like looking in the mirror, and my waistline just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, it's working. This is awesome. And then I was thinking, for every action, there's a reaction. What if I don't wake up tomorrow? So I nearly didn't go to sleep that night. And I got up at 3 a.m. and I sent check-ins, and I had peaked. Like, that was it. That was the best I looked. And then I pushed more. I pushed more Bumex. At that point, I think I was given maybe like 100 grams of rice and some salt, but nothing was going to fill me out, and let alone 100 grams of rice. And I headed to the show, and prejudging felt like I was on stage. I think I was on stage for 8 minutes, and it felt like 8 hours. As soon as I walked off stage and got behind the curtain, I fell to the ground. Medics came over immediately. They put ice packs around me, and I wasn't sweating or anything like that. I was very like weak and faint, and I just didn't feel right. My heart was like racing. I actually could feel like a tightness. So I was scared that I was having a heart attack. And I remember texting my boyfriend when I was laying on the ground, and I was like, there's a Gatorade in my bag. I need it. And he came, and he rushed through backstage and got it and brought it to me. And at the same time, I was texting Shelby, and I was like, hey, I'm with the medics. I fell down. Prejudging's over. I got first call out. But something's not right. I don't feel right. I was like, I'm going to drink some Gatorade. And he said, no fluids.
Wow.
That's what shocked me. Yeah, I heard that in your video. What the hell?
So pretty fucking shocking. You know, it makes you really wonder, like the outcome is clearly more important. It seems like let's take it. I'm taking it for granted that this is, you know, factual. This actually happened, but it seems like the outcome is far more important to this individual than the coach here in question, than the health of the competitor. You know, like obviously there has to be some line you draw. Like again, not a healthy sport to begin with, but when it comes to diuretics and like something that can kill you immediately, are androgens going to be something that, you know, you take too much of testosterone or some shit and you end up dying at your show overnight? Like, no, that's not going to happen. It's something that's going to be long-term, cause cardiovascular issues, cause, a myriad of different things, kidney stress, liver stress, etc. But it's not something that's going to kill you like acutely. Diuretics though, fucking will.
So I asked him, how many people have died? He said, no, only one person has died before, and now Alina or Alana. So 2 people have died. And he was like,
Blue knows more by name.
Yeah.
Tracy Hess, you can talk to her husband about it. She was 2 weeks out from the Tampa in 2018. And then who's the girl, the national level girl, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'm not sure her name because they actually removed her name from the scorecard, but because she did not show up. But she did not show up because she died in the hotel room like the night before.
And then
he's straight up lying?
And then the chick that died right after the show,
Mariola in Tampa.
Yeah,
what?
So
there's 4 people who've died?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? Before I continue,
in 2.5 years, not just like over his career, in 2.5 years.
The chick in Tampa, she got off stage, and I think she passed away in her hotel room like the day after or something.
Yeah, it was like a couple of days later. Yeah, her body couldn't recover.
So again, these guys are just, baffled as any of the viewers are of this podcast. Like they're living it in real time, listening to this story. And you can imagine everyone else's reaction, including my own, when I'm hearing this out of their podcast for the first time. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like how is anybody prescribing these kind of protocols? And people want to, keep going, like people, I guess the result is you get, a dry, grainy physique, but it's like, if you were in shape for a show and you had actually gone into your prep at a reasonable enough body fat to have a sufficient amount of time to get in shape, would you have to deploy some of these, aggressive protocols and whatnot? No. And I would imagine the onus should probably be on the coach to be like, you're not at a good starting point. So we're probably, I'm not going to go through with prepping you if you want to get in the shape you need to win. Like, we're not going to fucking make it because you're not in a good enough shape right now. At 16 weeks out, 20 weeks out, whatever it is. Not let's, push the envelope harder and, push the diuretic usage at the end harder to achieve a look that you otherwise, could have only achieved if you came into your prep at a better starting point. Like, for an experienced coach, I would imagine the onus should be partially on you to be like, you're not fucking ready, you know? Like you're too out of shape right now to prepare for the show. And the shit you're going to have to do to look dialed in at the end of it is going to be extremely dangerous, above and beyond the fucking inherent danger that the sport already has.
So my water was pulled at about, I would say 3:30 on Friday. And I wasn't allowed to drink water, obviously, until finals was over Saturday night. So over 24 hours. But for Jody, and I'll speak on her behalf, she wants to be on here. Hers was a 2-day show. She didn't get to have water for over 48 hours.
Holy crap. With the diuretics, you're talking about people.
That's why her body has not been able to recover 9 months later, because she dehydrated her body so hard and for so long.
Oh my God.
I've never heard of these protocols like this, Leo, ever. Like usually when people hammer diuretics, like I was in the hotel room with a guy in Nationals who was hammering diuretics, and he kept the fluid in the whole time. While he was hammering diuretics, he was drinking the whole fucking time. So this is just outrageous to me.
I'm honestly speechless, because
I just want people to be aware whether or not the protocols continue to happen or they stop, which would be wonderful. I just want people to be aware so they can see it when it's on their plan and it's handed to them, and they can be like, oh, hell no, I know better. I saw that podcast. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to try to do with the podcast. We'll try to popularize it and direct it to. But Boston, because Boston has kidney issues. We always talk about like androgens affecting the kidney or blood pressure. There is nothing worse than dehydration for the kidney. It is the most damaging thing to the kidney acutely, and the damage remains.
Like
you can't.
that.
Yeah, and you cannot heal, and you may have damage that you don't even know about. Like your EGFR may look normal, but a few years later you may find, oh crap.
Trust me, I'm now going to get checked out because I am pretty concerned for myself now. And I've competed multiple times since then with more diuretics.
You should consider is just doing an ultrasound so you can get a visual picture of the kidney to see if it has scarring in it. Which is what Boston just did. And also I should mention, when you do your kidney test, don't just look at creatinine because that's affected so much by your muscle. There's another thing called cystatin C. You can calculate your EGFR based on cystatin C, and that does not get affected by your muscle. So it'll tell you a good picture of how your kidneys are functioning. And a third thing called symmetric dimethylarginine, SDMA. Those three are all predictors of kidney. So if you test all of them, you'll get a very good understanding of how your kidneys function. Okay,
so I just need to ask for like a full kidney workup, and then
no, they won't give you these. I'll send it to you. I'll send you a DM with the names.
So there, Leo talks about some of the dangers of diuretics, what you should be doing to assess your kidney function and whatnot. And these are more obscure tests that you are not going to get in a standard, comprehensive metabolic panel that you would otherwise get at, private MD labs or whatever. Like these are cost-efficient labs that give a general overview, but are not super specific and will not be able to give you a clear picture based on your individual muscle mass. Especially, you get highly skewed readings when you get creatinine calculated glomerular filtration rate or estimated still. You want to be looking at things that are matched for the accuracy of inulin clearance. You want something that is going to be the gold standard of assessing your kidney parameters and whatnot. And there are other obscure biomarkers that Leo is aware of that he just mentioned. And this is something that we have offered at Merrick Health before. So if you want to check out those kind of kidney panels and whatnot, things that we've designed specifically based on these obscure biomarkers, you can check them out at Merrick Health. Link in the description below, my HRT clinic. You can get high quality oversight from doctors who understand how to interpret these kind of tests and what to order in the first place, especially for bodybuilders with enhanced amounts of muscle mass. And they're not going to be judgmental of your situation. Rather, they are going to help you and give you what you need. Now, getting into some of the androgen use, which is obviously notable above and beyond the crazy fucking fat burner dosages and diuretics. Well, actually, we should be talking about the fat burners first, actually, because those are some of the most insane dosages I've ever heard of. So this part of the podcast, the subsection is called Shelby's Death Recipe, T3, Clen, and DNP.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the best of this guy, but like, I don't understand how you could do this to so many people.
Well, and yeah, he's had people run up to 200 mcgs of Clen and 120, 150 T3.
Hey, that's
I just got an email, 180 T3 for 8 weeks.
180 T3
and 2+ hours of cardio, plus 180, 200 micrograms of Clen, plus 600 milligrams of DNP.
Oh my
God! The hell?
He had some girls use DNP too.
Yeah, I have the protocol. This is the most recent person that just messaged me.
Worse than I thought.
No, but the just for the audience to know, T3 directly raises your heart rate. That's why we like this thing called GC1, which is a peptide effector. It directly raises your heart rate. When I take 25 milligrams of T3 in the morning, my heart rate is like 10 beats higher. If I then went to exercise for 2 hours, my heart will develop fibrosis in it, scar tissue, and grow. Now, if I did that and took Clen and I took 150 micrograms of T3, that's insane. That's a death recipe.
This isn't just for like a week or two. We're talking stints of like 8 to 12 weeks.
The damage to the heart will never go away. I can tell you for sure.
That's why Jody is 30 and needs open heart surgery.
My God.
So these dosages are just fucking astronomical, like absolutely nonsensical. I've, personally never even heard that high. Like T3, it's such a catabolic hormone though too. It doesn't distinguish between muscle tissue and fat. It is going to strip valuable tissue off your frame at those dosages. It doesn't matter if you're on fucking Tren, if you're on grams a test. Like you have to keep in mind, these women, they're using, well, I don't know what dosages of androgens he's using too. Who the fuck knows? But I mean, he's using a decent amount of anabolics. But in women, they can't push the androgen vector as hard as men. And even he wouldn't dose them as high as like an open male bodybuilder, I would assume, unless he's, that fucking crazy. But even male bodybuilders are not going to keep all their tissue using even like fucking 100 micrograms of T3. That's going to strip valuable tissue from you and make it way harder to get in shape, in my opinion. Like that's like screaming, I'm not ready to prep for a show. Get me fat loss, at an accelerated rate, regardless of what kind of implications it has on my health or, my body composition even. Now, again, obviously this guy is presumably well known for getting people in shape, and he, has the results on stage, to back up, being like one of the premier like female coaches essentially. But I mean, like the fact, like it's one thing to take, like I'm sure he probably has clients that don't have to push this fucking hard. But I mean, like the fact that you would even take on a client that you have to push up to that point to get them in shape, like that's the scary thing, If you have somebody that's not going to be ready for a show in time, like I would imagine the responsible move would be to make an educated conclusion that, okay, we're at a point where not only are what you're doing is already fucking dangerous as is, taking androgens as a fucking female, using anabolics, using fat burners, using thermogenics, using shit that fucks with your thyroid. This is stuff that's already not healthy. And now we're at a point where to get you in shape, dialed in, we're going to have to go above the baseline danger and go to like extreme levels of fucking hazard zone that, who knows what the fuck's going to happen. And at the end, we're going to slam you with multiple diuretics and aromatase inhibitors. Not just one, but multiple. Some with overlapping mechanisms of action, things that are going to really fuck you up, make you depressed, make you suicidal. They mentioned some girl slit her wrist and then he still wanted her to step on stage or something insane. Now, again, I don't know how factual a lot of this stuff is, but like, I'm just as fucking baffled as you guys are listening to this shit. Like the dosages are absolutely insane. So again, if you're a female who gets a plan from a coach and it says, or they tell you, like you need to bump up your Clen to like fucking 150 or something. You need to bump up your T3 to 100, like fucking run. That shit's insane. That's absolutely like heart destroying numbers right there. And above and beyond that, like the amount of other shit you're going to be doing on top of that. Like there was a mention of using ephedrine on top of that, using other stimulants. Like and then you factor in the fucking diuretics at the end on top of the androgen use as a female with the viralization, like absolutely astronomical, insane, mind-blowing shit going on here. And the 600 DNP on top of that too. Fuck me.
But somebody was asking us, by the way, we had a question. Somebody was saying, Chalupa Mataj was saying, we know his diuretic protocols are insane, but what about the rest? High T3 and Clen are a no-brainer, but is he a big fan of high androgens also? I was just curious about that.
Yeah. So like I said, I was on like 10 different compounds. I was on 3 different oils. So Masteron, EQ, and Primo all at the same time. Winstrol, Nolvadex, Arimidex, Proviron.
THD compound?
And Letro. So like that was my stack.
Letro, holy fuck.
Holy crap. He's very intense. Letro on a woman.
Plus
all the
T3 and Clen. I think I was on like 12 different things at once.
You were
and
just
then you're allowed to use, he encourages you to use like Bronchate or Ephedra if you want as well.
That's insane. With the clenbuterol and this is crazy. This will kill anybody that's not extremely robust.
That's why it has to stop, Leo.
This is crazy. This is criminal.
So she goes through her laundry list of anabolics, of ancillaries, of aromatase inhibitors, of DHT derivatives, like the full gamut of shit she's using, and it's mind-blowing, dude. You know? Like, if you're, like, there's no test in there, there's no trend. However, using Masteron on top of Primo, on top of, on top of the I can't even remember, what is it? Boldenone, she was on. The Proviron she was on the Primo, she was on the Masteron, she was also using Novadex concurrently with the Arimidex, with Letro, with fucking, like, did he swap the Arimidex for Letro or added it on top? Maybe, you know, maybe she's confusing that, but like at the end of the day, fucking baffling, dude. Like adding in some of these androgenic, like real fucking androgenic compounds like Proviron on top to try and, like, you know, like what? Occupy the non-existent SHBG and just make you like fucking viralized? Like, that's what we're accomplishing. Sure, it's gonna dry you out a bit more maybe, but again, like, are you really accomplishing anything above and beyond your fucking non-existent estrogen and DHT derivatives you've already used? You have Boldenone completely occupying aromatase probably. You have Masteron antagonizing estrogen-induced RNA transcription. You have no fucking aromatization anyways, because none of these are potent substrates for aromatase that produce any kind of significant amounts of estrogen. You have aromatase inhibitors overlapping on top of each other, making you fucking, your mind absolutely warped, and you probably have zero estrogen to be at the end of this, regardless of any kind of, you know, synthetic, you know, odd, weak fucking estrogen receptor agonists that you'd be getting out of the EQ or whatever. And then you have these DHT derivatives lapped on top that are, you know, going to essentially, like, you're nuked to nothingness, and then you're adding more nukes on top of the fucking nukes. Like, that's how bad this shit is. Let's just throw on more Proviron, just in case you're not fucking dry enough from the Novadex, the Letrozole, the fucking Masteron, the fucking Proviron, the Primo, the fucking Boldenone. Absolutely baffling, dude. Again, the most fucked up thing about this is how they're mentioning that these protocols are being used at like 2 to 3 months out. Like, it would be one thing. Now, again, it's already fucking insane, but it would be one thing if you're like peaking somebody, doing some dangerous shit for the last like 1 to 2 weeks. But when you're doing stuff for like 8 to 12 weeks, like of nonsensical shit, it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, if you're gonna kitchen sink somebody and throw their health out the window, like, I'm baffled that he's not at least waiting to do it. Like, he's doing it for like a full fucking, like, 2/3 of a prep, you know? Absolutely baffling shit, dude. Now, like, is this all truthful? I don't know. You know, I'm sure there will be more stories to come out, more, you know, examples of protocols. Apparently she has 100+ DMs at this point of a bunch of insane protocols that this guy's been giving out. If more, you know, come to the surface, I don't know. Will we revisit this topic? Like, I'm sure Leo, you know, is the one covering it. Definitely go subscribe to his channel, and he will, you know, be providing a lot of updates around the situation. So definitely go check out his channel. And kudos to Stephanie for, you know, stepping up in this situation, giving, you know, highlighting the dangers of the shit, and at least having some education around what to look out for. If you see a protocol, you know, in similar magnitude / compound selection / dosages deployed / duration of exposure, you can get an idea of what's like actually insane versus not. Because a lot of these girls, they just don't know, and they end up taking it because the coach says to. But if there's, you know, an overarching stance in the community that something is dangerous, like, at least it will be educating the masses in enough of a magnitude that hopefully it bleeds through, and the, you know, most of the women start to see that, oh, this is a protocol that looks similar to like a death cycle that somebody else had potentially, and maybe it's not the best thing for me to go through with this, you know, that kind of stuff. You're not going to really, you know, like, I can see why somebody might just blindly follow a plan, because that's what's been encouraged in this industry, unfortunately, is hire a fucking guru who's successful and blindly follow his suggestions. And if you go somewhere else for suggestions from somebody else, you're being a piece of shit, and you should be trusting your coach. You know, like, how many coaches in this industry, you know, there are a lot of reputable coaches. A lot of coaches do have their, you know, clients' best interests in mind. And it just sucks that it's hard to know of which individuals, you know, have the right ethics and morals and shit. Because I guess, like, a lot of them are getting, like, results on paper at the end of the day. You know, they have, like, good looking final stage photos and IFBB pros and this and that, you know, the track records, you know. But again, there's different ways to skin a cat. There's different ways to end up on stage looking as good as the next person. And there's definitely a safer way to go about doing it. So anyways, we shall see highly appreciate the education that has been brought out of this podcast, and just baffling shit, dude. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates.dates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, not BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Couple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Get high quality oversight from doctors who understand this kind of stuff and know how to keep you safe when you are going on HRT, or even if you're a natural individual who's just looking to optimize and get as healthy and high tier functioning as possible. Optimizing your performance, optimizing your health in general, and assessing your biomarkers and your health parameters in as precise a way as possible, and knowing what kind of diagnostics to even fucking get, because a lot of people don't know how to handle people who have, more muscle mass than normal, or how to understand, skewed biomarker interpretations when, you have an individual with a more unreliable set of blood work, essentially based on, the fact that they worked out recently, or the fact that they, more muscle bound than the next guy. I think there's certain things you have to take into account with individuals, and it's very individual specific. And having doctors who understand this stuff is absolutely fucking critical for staying healthy and ensuring longevity and quality of life. So if you're interested in getting a high quality doctor who understands this kind of stuff, represents the highest quality information, highly recommend you check out my clinic, as well as anything else I'm associated with. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas I designed myself from scratch, recommended lab tests and diagnostics, stay on top of your health. The clothing company that supports me, wearing my videos, and anything else I'm associated with, that helps support the brand, the channel, it is all in the video description below. It's much appreciated when you guys use the coupon codes, use the links, etc. So thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.